How's it going, guys? It's Richard, and before I get on with the video I kind of wanted to show you something that I managed to achieve earlier finally, and that is my fight kiln. Now I know a couple of people actually asked me to do a fight kiln guide, and realistically if you had seen my performance earlier then you would not want me to do a guide. It was embarrassing. It's very different in the evolution of combat. Basically you don't need food at all, you just need to be smart with your abilities and just last as long really, but you know, I still got it, still got my fight kiln cape. Anyway, what this little guide slash piece of information today is about how worthwhile the Dragon Defender is now that the evolution of combat has been released, because as you know it's no longer a shield slot anymore, it actually counts as an offhanded weapon. But anyways, first of all let's remove that, and let's start off by looking at what the actual stats of the Dragon Defender are now. Now it's not hugely significant. 190 damage, that's pretty low realistically. Like obviously a main hand, something like a rapier actually has, I think it's 960, which is obviously considerably more than an offhand. Obviously offhands always have half their main hand equivalent, so let's say an offhand rapier would be 480 offhand damage. But also offhands always have the unique ability of having some accuracy, which is kind of interesting, and that's what the Dragon Defender does. So far it's not really looking that special. Just to note, it's a stab weapon and it's the fastest. It's not really looking that special with those stats there. However, it has a pretty nice armor rating and life point bonus. Now obviously that's something that you won't get with an offhand weapon, because an offhand weapon will purely just be damage based, damage and hit points. So let's look at this offhand Dragon Longsword. Obviously it's not as quick there and damage and things, but it doesn't have any form of armor. So that is one thing that's really unique to the Dragon Defender, which is kind of interesting, but whether or not it puts it in contention or not is questionable. So if we compare it to some other offhands, so let's say the offhand Dragon Longsword, I know it's not a stabbing weapon like the Defender, but it is you know, it's the sort of thing you'd use instead, because it's also level 60 gear and it's considerably better. It's got twice the accuracy and considerably more damage, so not really got anything going for it at the moment. But obviously the Dragon Defender is stabbing damage, so if you're trying to kill something that's weak to stab, you might want something more like a dagger, because there aren't really any alternatives for an offhand dragon weapon besides the dagger. It's kind of surprising. I mean, I don't think there's an offhand version of the spear or the pickaxe, so that's not an option. So there's that. So basically the Dragon Dagger is a little bit better than the Defender, so obviously it goes down a little bit, but once again the dagger doesn't have any form of armor or life point bonus, which is something that will be unique offered to a shield. Now the actual armor and life points isn't really that noteworthy though. Like if you compare it to something of similar level, then you'd get normally about 800 armor rating and a little bit of life point bonus, but then at the same time you're not getting yourself an offhand weapon. So in itself maybe not that practical as an offhand weapon, but it does give you that little bit of an option. So far in terms of just basic auto attacks, it's kind of an in-between point between DPS and armor, so it's kind of unique. Now what is kind of a bit of an advantage, now if we look on my abilities book, if I equip myself a main hand, which I've actually left behind, so I'll just go and grab myself one of those. So here we are, I went and got my main hand weapon. Now what you'll note is if you equip a chaotic rapier main hand, then you actually have access to all of your dual wield abilities like Havoc, and obviously the high level ones like Massacre, the Threshold, and Flurry, and I believe there's one more in strength. Yep, Frenzy. That gives you a nice little, like, it gives you nice DPS that you wouldn't otherwise be capable of, because you'd have a one-handed or you'd obviously be using a two-handed. So that is one big advantage of using the Defender. But also one thing that you look to do, like the main thing about shields isn't necessarily about the actual life point bonus and the armor bonus that it gives you. It's more about the massive ability bonuses that it gives you. Like for example things like Barricade and whatnot are kind of like really useful abilities. Like I'd say Rejuvenate is probably one of my most frequently used defensive abilities, and if you look, it doesn't count. It doesn't count as me wearing a shield, unfortunately, which is a bit of a shame. So it's not really that useful for that. And then also when you compare it to other offhand weapons, like the chaotic rapier, it's obviously considerably better, but if you're only level 60 and you've only just got a Dragon Defender, then I suppose it'd be more practical. So in all, maybe it'd be better for General Slayer, where you're almost getting the kills but you're struggling a little bit because you've not got quite enough armor, not quite enough life point boost, but you don't really feel the need for defensive abilities, so you want to stick with a Dragon Defender. So maybe in that situation it'd be nicer. But what one major downside of using the Dragon Defender is that it's only actually stab now. Like obviously in the past, because it was a shield slot item, it didn't matter what attack style that the enemy was weak to, because you'd always be actually only using your main hand and it just gave you attack bonuses. So now it's kind of it's not really that significant anymore, because you have to use it in a stab weak enemy. I mean, to straight away, like I can't. The only things I can think of that have got a stab weakness are strike worms, like the jungle and desert strike worms. And to be honest, I can't think of many other stab weak enemies in general. I mean, I know obviously that there are a few. Like, I believe one of the Barrage brothers has a weakness to stab, but realistically, it's not. You're not going to use it as an item, because the way it goes in RuneScape is that you're either causing a lot of damage and you're not really taking much damage, or you're taking a lot of damage, so you need to be really defensive. So it doesn't really seem to have that much of a place left in RuneScape anymore. But it does still attack, and it obviously does have the added bonus of those dual-wield abilities, so it does still have a use, but I don't really believe it's got that much of a practical use in the game anymore. Anyway, just a little piece of information about the Dragon Defender. Thought you might find it interesting. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you again soon.